Hello, beer tubers, and welcome to another Throwback Thursday with me, Peter, the Master of Hoppets. Today, enjoying the last rays of sunshine outside on this lightly warm summer evening. We're doing a Throwback Thursday on some classic British beer that I haven't seen in bottles in Denmark in years. So we're checking out Theakston's Old Peculier. So this was at a local bottle shop, actually a wine store that also has bottles of beer and cans. And I was like, wow, I can't remember the last time I've seen bottles of this. I mean, I've had it on cask, not like too long ago. I think the last time I had this on cask was actually when I was over in Leeds with work to brew with Northern Monk. And it was quite nice. It's a pretty classic beer. So it's from Theakston, and it's one of Britain's largest family-owned brewers that's still family-owned. I think the other one is Shepherd Neame, that's like the biggest. And Theakston might be the second biggest that's still family-owned. But they make a lot of very, very classic beers, and arguably their most famous is Old Peculier. They even have their own cooperage where they make wooden casks and all these things, which is really cool. So very, very traditional brewery that, again, I haven't been drinking too much of since it's not been in Denmark really. So Theakston Old Peculier, it is one of the oldest beers that they've been doing at Theakston. I think it dates back to the late 1800s. And style-wise, it's a pretty interesting one because it can be categorized as a few different things. They often talk about it being a strong ale, and that's very, very, big, large, if you think English strong ale. But it's also being called an old ale. It's being called a dark ale. It's being called a stock ale. It kind of depends on where you look and who you're listening to or watching or whatever. I think, though more broadly known, people see this as an old ale, but a very light strength old ale compared to what's being made nowadays, and also compared to really traditional old ales. So and stock ales for that matter. So basically, if we just quickly jump onto the history wagon, old ale and stock ale are the oldest or older strong ales of Britain compared to barley wine, which is newer. That's actually from around, I think the first bottle of barley wine was from Bass, which was from 1903 or something like that. Whereas old ale and stock ale are much older than that. Traditionally, these kind of beers would be made from only the first runnings of wort, having really, really high gravity worts. This was before all the crazy stuff people do nowadays, but really strong first runnings. You'd ferment this, and then you would often mellow it by aging it in barrels, because it was almost back then undrinkable because it was really sweet. There was a lot of hops in to help make the beer last longer. You needed high alcohol, you needed lots of hops. So to counteract all this, it was aged in barrels, and naturally back then in wood, in the cooperage, that would be bacteria. So lactobacillus, Brettanomyces, all these things. So traditionally, real British beers, a lot of them, would have been really funky and sour, and quite different from modern ales and modern brewing tradition. It's almost, towards the world of Lambic and Oud Bruins and stuff in Belgium, which I think is really cool. And a small amount of people still try to do beers like this to this day. Then stock ale is very similar to old ale as well. They are hard to distinguish. And there's not like a lot of technical and historical evidence to what really, makes what. But a lot of times stock ales would also be used for blending into younger beers that were brewed in the summer. So, and usually old ale was released as an older beer. So, yeah, there's a lot of history about all this stuff, and it's a lot of cool classic brewing tradition. But let's not get too geeky about that and dive into this specific beer. So, pours a very, very nice ruby red color in the glass. Man, that's beautiful. Really clear. It's not pasteurized. It's not chill filtered or anything. It's just, put in the bottle. I'm guessing they do some kind of filtration of sorts, like maybe just a filter, but or maybe it says that it is cold filtered. I'm not sure, because it says unpasteurized and cold filtered. So is it not cold filtered, or is it? Also doesn't matter. But it's one of these statements on breweries like this, from breweries like this, to let you know that they try to do beer as authentically as possible. But yeah, it looks really nice when I poured it out. It had a slight thicker beige head, but let's check out the aroma on Old Peculier. That is really, 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 really old money beer. And I can already tell you right now, if you're new into beer, you might not like this. You might not like this at all. It's really dark fruity. It's really butterscotch toffee-like. There's definitely diacetyl, but in a lot of these classic British beers, it's wanted. Kind of like in some Czech breweries' lagers, diacetyl is wanted. Like Pilsner Urquell is a great example, but this has it in spades. But with the flavor profile of this, it works. It makes this have a butterscotch toffee, dark fruit, raisin, fruit pruny, sultana type aroma. Lots of that. Bassett's wine gum, like chewy toffee, maltiness, like pure toffee, butterscotch toffee. I'm not smelling much in terms of hops, and I do not know how long they give this in terms of shelf life. I mean, 5.6%, it would probably be a year. So judging by that, it would have been bottled on the 31st of March. So it's actually fairly fresh for a beer style like this. It smells a lot like when you get it on cask, but it just has a better head retention in it because it's, better carbonated in the bottle. So it says it's unpasteurized, but it doesn't say if it's bottle conditioned. That's also a very common thing to do with beers like this. But it smells very nice. Let's check it out. Cheers. That's really good. That's really good old school beer. It might not be the upper echelon of the British ales, but this is like how I remember it. Like, not too long, it's a few years ago, I revisited Hobgoblin, and I was like, what happened to this beer? This is exactly how I remember Old Peculier. Exactly. It's spicy. There's definitely a hop character. It's all Fuggles hops, so it has like a little bit of a Nestle hedgerow kind of hop character. It's slightly peppery too, spicy, almost lightly twiggy. Lots of doughy bready malt, toasty bready malt, loads of butterscotch toffee, and dark fruit. And the whole Peculier thing about it, I think it's a huge ester profile because there's lots of jammy fruit, and lots of it is like Bassett's wine gum like really like blackcurrant wine gums. It's actually got a lot of complexity for a beer this ABV, and not that strong. In British standards, it is because British brewing tradition, a lot of beers, at least modern times, with bitters and everything being lower strength. 5.6 was full strength, and in craft beer, that's nothing nowadays. But it's a really good classic beer. Very silky, very slick, yet dry, making you want to go in for another sip. It definitely tastes like an autumnal beer, but I really like it in the weather there is right now. It kind of tastes like you took a dialed down old ale, mixed it with brown ale, but you have less of that nutty flavor. There's a little bit, but it's more focused on the kind of dark fruit aspect of really jammy fruit and whatnot. And it really works. Like that marmalade, that spice. There's a toasted hazelnut, but I'm also getting like a spiciness that reminds me of rye. But I think that's the Fuggle hops in there. Maybe even a hint of a slight toasty, roasty, leathery, but super light kind of profile. I actually think that's really good. I wouldn't mind. Well, I have a full bottle, so I have a pint. But I wouldn't mind a pint. And after this, I wouldn't mind another pint. And I would love to actually drink this on cask again. We get it sometimes locally. And I think, when I reviewed it back in the day, it was on cask. I didn't rate it too high back then, but I had a different view of grading systems back then. Nowadays I know a little bit more about how rating is done in the beer world. Like anything pretty much around 50 and below is flunked beer. It's off flavored and whatnot. So it's way too low. I gave it a 75. That'd be like okay beer. I think it's much better than okay. I think it's good. It's very good. It's not like the best of the best beers out there, and it's not the best of the best classic British beers, but it is really, really good. So something like an 85, maybe even an 87, in that range. I would like to drink this again. I want to finish the bottle, but it's not something where I'm really blown away or anything. But you also have to think, like, do you need to be blown away by beer for it to be rated high? Can it just be really nice to sit and enjoy like this? Can't you focus on drinkability? It's the whole mindset of being a craft beer geek, It's about being smacked in the face. This is not a smack in the face, but it's really nice. And I'd buy this again any day. Really good. There's a bit of a slight sweet, kind of caramelly note. Like it's not sugary, but there is definitely some sweetness from crystal malt. And plus also the finishing gravity and whatnot. But yeah, really, really good beer. I enjoy it. So, yeah, that was a fun revisit to Theakston and their Old Peculier. I remember also really liking it a lot when I had it in Leeds. But it was a few beers in, and the star of the show there was the bitter from 5 Points. That was amazing. It'll be fun to see more breweries in the UK play around with these things. I mean, and there's a lot of brewers now doing the whole stock ale type stuff already with barrels. I know Holy Goat does a lot of like funky strong beers that are blended and put in barrels and whatnot. So it's happening. I mean, people are going backwards, not going backwards, but looking back at tradition and seeing what they can get out of that instead of just being crazy and sticking in loads of weird ingredients. Even though that's also fun. But yeah. Well, I enjoy myself a glass of Theakston Old Peculier. So, if you guys had a chance to try this one, let me know what you thought of it. That was a long review, longer than I intended it to be, but hope you enjoyed it. If you have never tried this beer, definitely check it out. You can get it pretty much all over the world. If you live in Denmark, it's back. You can find it online. It's in a lot of bottle shops. I think it's distributed by one of the big guys. Is it One Pint? Yes. So One Pint, they spread beer out everywhere. It's nice to see them bring in more English beer that hasn't been in the country for a while, actually. So, yeah. If you had Old Peculier, let me know what you thought of it. As always, remember to comment, subscribe, check out the Facebook fan page and Twitter and Instagram. Give this video a thumbs up, enjoyed it, and ring the bell for future notifications about videos. And I'm going to say cheers in a delicious little glass of very classic British beer, or English, and see you guys in another beer review.